Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from the snowy civil courthouses, vigilante-made assets, and fast-paced bridal timelines of franchise novellas, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of affluent Oregon gated communities, weaponized marital infidelity, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an elite neighborhood alliance running a raw tactical sanctuary defense loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, manicured cul-de-sac perimeters of an active, multi-layered suburban psychological operation, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, trust-shattering deception matrix with On a Quiet Street, the exceptional, pulse-pounding structural masterpiece engineered by the absolute undisputed sovereign of slow-burn domestic paranoia, intricate neighborhood espionage networks, and Edgar Award-nominated suspense statecraft, Seraphina Nova Glass. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce trio of underestimated female neighborhood assets running an unyielding safety loop, an encroaching web of toxic masculine predators running a high-stakes proximity tracking routine, and an absolute defense of a community's final personal sovereignty metrics collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant female protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged neighborhood gossip structures, corrupt marital gaslighting, and a deadly ring of active missing persons cover-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised suburban ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated proximity boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory neighborhood network, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, grieving mother teams up with her suspicious neighbors to uncover the dark truth behind a sudden disappearance, only to expose a vicious web of domestic cruelty diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Glass completely dominates the high-precision suburban espionage meets suffocating domestic paranoia dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating domestic paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre varks like Leanne Moriarty, B.A. Paris, Sally Hepworth, and Liv Constantine, while treating realistic grief-induced psychological logistics, complex tracking device subversionants, and protective high-density psychological extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse assets, Cora, Paige, and Georgia, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of massive maternal grief, suffocating spousal control, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within Brighton Hills, an exclusive coastal enclave outside Portland. Behind their rigorous neighborhood database footprints and tense personal history logs lies an intricate matrix and hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried marital hostility, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Their collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight behind a lifetime of protecting their households and surviving complex emotional ambushes. Their entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an aggressive sociopathic neighborhood patriarch, parsing complex behavioral shifts from their seemingly perfect husbands, and shielding their vulnerable sanctuary nodes from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected, high-frequency structural anomaly breaches their active scanning perimeter. Paige's frantic conviction that her late son's death was a coordinated execution intersects with Cora's terrifying discovery that her husband is running a clandestine tracking loop with a young college girl who has suddenly vanished from the active municipal registry. As the hostile predator's execution phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across their shared cul-de-sac timeline, a series of unauthorized midnight break-ins, covert vehicle GPS tracking deployments, and calculation-heavy garden wall standoffs threaten to permanently eliminate their independent perimeters. The official diagnostic metrics of the global tracking centers flash white-hot when their cooperative counter-surveillance maneuvers and raw analytical output reveal that a hidden predatory network operating behind closed doors is radically impossibly altering the gated community's historical balance of power. The standard boundaries of routine neighborhood etiquette and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. They are thrust directly into an active, invisible war behind the pristine facades of Brighton Hills, where deceptive friends masking their true tracking coordinates, highly manipulative spouses, and a calculation-heavy psychological shadow network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress their survival data stream.
The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the isolated residential driveways, dark backyard surveillance perimeters, and private fortified basement chambers into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroines are forced to deploy their massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw emotional stamina to preserve their focus before his relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes their boundaries. The main antagonist remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy massive corporate intelligence, deep structural leverage, and persistent psychopathic dominance to break their alliance, only to realize their hardened defensive protocols and shifting counter-narratives match his raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard security barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at their reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Suburban elite's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Seraphina Nova Glass reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial rumor or managing a difficult marriage crisis. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and narcissistic supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their shared alliance. A brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that historical emotional hazards have tracked them to the final outpost. To survive the impending lock-grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, our resilient heroine must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a psychological thriller, domestic suspense noir, neighborhood mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one-hidden GPS tracker triggers a fatal suburban basement showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operator has completely mapped your personal coordinates, carries massive structural weight. Glass writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, manicured boxwood hedges, expensive Oregon Pinot Noir, rain-slicked asphalt, dynamic adrenaline, spilled copper, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary standalone marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. On a Quiet Street is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell alongside your network to rewrite the data. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.